Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to another installment of ISV Connect Live. It's my honor and pleasure to welcome Johan and Michiel from Ferranti. Before we get to both of them, let me kind of just quickly start off with a couple housekeeping items. One, as you're watching the event, thank you so much for joining. We'd love to hear from where you're watching from, because we do have a global audience from around the world that does watch this every Monday at 8 a.m. So if you just want to type in the LinkedIn window, if you're watching from Europe, Belgium, or the south of France, where Michiel is doing this the show today, we'd love to hear from you. The other is that if you have any questions for Johan or Michiel, as we're talking about Ferranti as it relates to energy and utilities, please don't hesitate to also put it in the window. And throughout the event, if you find that the content is resonating or something that you actually like in what we're saying, you can just use the LinkedIn icons, either like, support, etc. And that gives us the indication that the content is actually resonating with people in the audience. So that being said, Johan, Michiel, thank you so much for taking the time and joining. So as we normally do, let's just kick off with what are both of your accountabilities and responsibilities at Ferranti? And then as I ask all my guests on these calls, which I love, people actually love to hear from it because it gives us an opportunity to understand and get to know each of you better. What's one thing that's not on your LinkedIn profile that you'd be open to sharing with people listening either live or on the replay?
Okay, that's cool. That's cool. Thank you, Brian, for hosting us. It's definitely interesting to have this chat. So I'm Chief Commercial Officer at Ferranti. So Ferranti is an ISV. We work in the energy and utility business with a product called Micons, which stands for Metering and Contract Management System. So we work for your typically energy provider that sends you your bills or that installs your meters, etc. So 20 years in the business, been working with Microsoft a lot. Not a lot of people know that with my job, I've had the opportunity to travel around the world a bit. I do a bit of photography as a hobbyist, and it's nice to combine that if you get to exciting places like the campuses of Microsoft at Redmond and so on, that you can also take some nice pictures. I also have another hobby, but I'm sure Michiel will tell about what we do with the team when it's not taking photos. Michiel?
Yeah. Hi, Brian. Hello, everyone. Thanks for hosting us. I'm responsible for our partner program, so responsible for P2P relations within Ferranti, both for what we call our RSIs partners, typical companies that implement our software with their own clients, and also technology partners, other ISVs that you've hosted in the past as well, Brian, that partner up with us to basically enrich the functionality of the platform even further, to give our customers even more functionality. So we also have other ISVs that are equally part of the ISV Connect program to enrich that functionality. 15 years with the company, multiple roles from delivery to even technical lead at some point in time, far way behind. But now really part of the partners. And I think what Johan was alluding to is one of the passions in the commercial part of the organization at Ferranti is cycling. So we do a lot of cycling. I just came back from the other side of France, where I climbed the Mont Ventoux last week.
Impressive, huh? Impressive, huh?
Very impressive.
And now I'm on the Bordeaux side, still enjoying a bit of vacation before I head back to Belgium, where it keeps on raining. So I'm happy that there's a bit of sunshine down here. I know you guys had your fair share of heat wave on the West Coast as well, so it has been pretty hot on your side as well. So yeah, that's some of the things. I also like a bit of photography as well, and traveling the globe to meet customers and partners. But yeah, cycling has become a big passion as well.
I love it, Michiel. As a Peloton rider, I mean, I know it's not the same, but I do have a Peloton at home, and I have the opportunity to feel like what some of those heavy hills can be like. And gosh, hopefully you got a chance to watch the Tour de France, because that, of course, was what was that, about 3 weeks ago? I can't remember.
Definitely, for us, it's in the right time zone, so we can watch a lot of it at the end of the day.
Absolutely, and this year was impressive for us as our very own Wout van Aert won the race at the Ventoux, so a lot of flags on that mountain.
Michiel was a bit slower.
I
was thinking, shall I bring a backpack and a tent to go up the hill in 2 days? But he managed.
Well, good for you.
More than an hour slower, I would say.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Well, that's a good aspiration to get the yellow jersey one of these days and showcase that. Gosh, well, thank you so much. And it's photography too, and that's where for everyone who before the pandemic had hit, I actually got the chance to meet Johan face to face, because he did get the chance to go to our Microsoft offices when they were open, and it was a great experience to engage.
Seems like 10 years ago.
It does seem like many years ago. So just a quick shout out before we get to the next questions. Quick shout out for those of you who put Windows in here. So Mino, thank you so much for commenting, and glad that you're able to join us today. This is Aaron Maselli. Again, I'm not sure why he shows up as anonymous, but he is watching from Africa, Nigeria. So thanks, Aaron Maselli, for watching. And then Ewan, there you go. And I can never pronounce that in the proper French way. So let's go ahead and get started. So why don't both of you, I mean, of course, you described a little bit, Johan, on what Ferranti does based upon the description of Micom. But give a sense for both you and Michiel, what are the things that we do together to drive amazing outcomes with energy utility customers? Because you can imagine all of us are consumers. We all have houses and homes that are being serviced by either electricity companies, gas companies, water companies, etc. Give a sense for what are some of the things that Ferranti drives as success with Microsoft to drive outcomes with these customers.
Absolutely, I think energy is a bit both water as well as power and gas. It's at the heart of everybody's home, and definitely with what's going on in the market with renewables, climate, etc. Although it's a conservative industry, it has been going through a lot of change the last 20 to 30 years. And what makes it interesting for us as a company, but also together with Microsoft, is that there's still more big changes to be coming. Because if you look at the utility in the past, they would look at robustness, quality of service, they would look at cost optimization, etc. But with what's happening now, the new type of customers' expectations are becoming much higher. Energy market has been liberalized. People are expecting a lot to be able to communicate in any manner, any time, any device. So the customer experience, the convenience of working with a utility is becoming much, much more important. And if you then add things like complex legislation, renewable energy, microgrids, and a number of other challenges that are happening in the utilities, it's a big challenge for the business and the IT department to meet those demands. And together with Microsoft, what we offer, we're based on the Microsoft Power Platform. So we leverage Dynamics 365, both things like customer service hub, sales, marketing, but also the back office, finance and operations, to really bring value to that meter to cash cycle, where we automate processes, introduce operational efficiency, etc. But also more and more look at what are ways to interact with the customer and to enter the new world of energy. Perhaps with your electrical vehicles, locally charging, how do you price that? You talk about utilities, you're talking about hundreds of thousands, millions of customers. You need a platform that can handle that size and that load. So these are all a couple of challenges that we work with Microsoft and with other ISVs to overcome that. So really, really interesting space. Although historically it used to be a conservative industry, but I've been in the sector for 20 years and never ever been bored. So So I think still a lot of change to come in our line of business.
That's great, Johan. Anything to add to that, Michiel?
Well, I think what is important, and we've seen that actually in the last 2 years have been pretty interesting from a global scale on what has happened globally. And utilities have been going through that change from an asset-intensive industry into a completely customer-centric focused industry, where they need to see what's going on, what can we do from value-added services related to the consumer and not to the asset. And things like what Johan mentioned, like electric vehicle services and things like that. But also equally important for us jointly, Microsoft with Ferranti, is that in an industry traditionally very asset protective, also for cloud services to say, hey, I want my stuff still on-prem. I want all of that controllable on my side. I've got rules and regulations that are disabling me to put everything in the cloud due to privacy rules. Well, all of that has even drastically speed up in the last 2 years with global lockdowns, where all of the utilities are even looking at cloud and what can I do to be more flexible. So that has actually even sped the change and the digitalization within our customers even more, which we're really exciting times together to talk to the utilities worldwide.
That's great, Michiel. It's interesting because in my former life, in different roles at Microsoft, I actually sold to a few energy companies, not in Europe, but in the US. And one of the interesting things is you hit it specifically, which is that whole balance of what energy and utility companies have to go through because of the whole rates have to be defined. And before they do increase of rates, they have to go through a board of panels to do all that. And the sensitivity of, do I decide to make that a technology investment on-prem versus the cloud because of a CapEx versus an OpEx expenditure, and those types of things are so important to what both of you had mentioned. Because of that impact, people need to have the innovation and the things happening so quickly and be able to scale. To your point, Johan, it's amazing the technology and what you guys can deliver, the amount of scale that needs to happen because you have thousands of customers that you need to determine people's bills for and send them out, do invoicing, all that stuff. So I think that's fantastic that we're hearing that, and the innovation. And your point,
and it's definitely it's a quick sample because by nature utilities are risk averse because they do things that are sending the bill of your energy is very close to people's heart. It's an important process, and we've seen a quick example, for example, with COVID. Utilities tend to have big call centers, but what if your staff cannot come to work to sit in the call center? That's just a small thing, and perhaps IT companies were used to working from home, but call centers were not from home. So these are a couple of things that we've seen, that next to a customer demand, self-service, working on your iPhone or other device, but also COVID has triggered a number of other concerns. If people are working remote, what about security? What about data privacy? And these are things that utilities are now seeing. If you have a very classic legacy architecture, it's very difficult to overcome those challenges of security, data privacy, working from anywhere, etc. And that's where the Microsoft Power Platform and what we do with Mecoms, we have an answer to that. And it's exciting to see that more and more utilities are adopting that, so that they can tap into some of those business issues that have grown a bit bigger with basically the way of working that was already changing, but has now gone through. We'll never get back to pre-COVID times. That's for sure.
Yeah, what a great comment too, Johan, on what the current environment has created. And that scenario where work from home that people haven't thought about before, and all these utility energy companies had to quickly identify how to do it. And it's great. And it's probably a good segue into the next question about being part of the Microsoft ecosystem partnership. But before I get to that, I actually had a good question from someone listening live. So question is, are you seeing any innovation in the meter itself, so as a consumer can make smarter energy choices? I'm not sure if that's connected to what MECOM is driving with companies or not, but you can imagine that sometimes, at least here in the US, I always get a bill. When I get my bill from Puget Sound Energy, I always get this additional thing saying, here's your usage compared to your neighbors. So it makes you feel bad or makes you feel good that you're saving energy. Are are any of those scenarios relevant that what MECOM helps to drive, Ferranti helps to drive with utility companies on energy conservation, usage, etc.?
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting question. And what we see is it all started a bit with what I would call energy awareness. And what you're saying, Brian, like you get your bill and the neighbors are doing better or worse, so you become aware of your energy. With smart metering being introduced, you can also track more of your energy and perhaps change how you consume energy and at what time you consume energy. And then obviously what we now see in the next trend is that the way that the grid used to operate is changing, because things are going closer to the home, more local. Perhaps you have batteries installed at home. Perhaps you have solar panels.
That's right.
You might have an electric vehicle. So we see more, let's call it microgrid scenarios. That's not where Ferranti is active. But what we also see is that from a centralized perspective, there needs to be communication, because one electric vehicle is not an interesting battery, but 100,000 electrical vehicles that stop charging or start charging is a really interesting way to balance energy, to balance production, to drive cost of energy lower or higher, or to make more use of clean technologies like solar, wind, etc. And that's where electrical vehicles, it's still at the very start, batteries at home, microgrids, but it's going to be quite different. So yes, to answer the question, things are happening in the home at the meter, but also in communication to the utilities that will be directing and balancing that load. And we're not so far away. There's already quite a bit of pilots going on that you get a message on an iPhone app to say like, oh yeah, are you okay to stop charging your car, or can I use that's obviously quite interesting. Now, what is a challenge in utilities that it's all based on a physical backbone, and that's why your energy grid, and that's why sometimes in modern scenarios, like perhaps in a Singapore or in smart cities that are constructed, there's much more innovative scenarios that are possible compared to basically perhaps energy pipelines that have been in the ground for over 60 years, etc. So yeah, still a lot of years before it becomes futuristic, but some exciting things going on.
No, that's great insight, Johan, because I think about it, you think about electric car. I don't personally have one, but I have a lot of people that I know that have, of course, a Tesla or equivalent of that sitting in their driveway. And I think of it as appliance. Like you think about when you turn on your dishwasher, when you turn on your dryer, and typically energy companies tell you, oh, turn it on in the evening, because that's when less of the people are doing it. And you think about when you charge a car, the same behaviors when you're going to have peaks and lows because of when someone decides to plug in that appliance.
And it's definitely like the evening challenge. I agree with that. But where energy consumption is going is that typically if it's hot and sunny and perhaps a lot of wind, it's during the day. So at that time there's perhaps way too much energy. And utilities are thinking, what do we do with that, and how do we balance that? That sometimes energy is free.
That's right.
Perhaps not for the consumer, but because there's too much production, and that will become more and more if we go more into the direction of renewables, for sure.
That's great. So, Michiel, that's a good segue into kind of, as Johan mentioned, like being able to quickly pivot, and of course, these partner-to-partner relationships that you mentioned. Give a sense for what has been the experience of Ferranti within the Microsoft ecosystem. Of course, Ferranti's been a partner for at least as long as I've been in this role and a little bit longer, what has that experience been like, just being a part of the Microsoft ecosystem and being part of the BizApps ISV Connect program for great BizApps ISVs like yourself?
It's been I would say, wild. I would say it's the pace of change is so big that we need to stay in touch and stay connected to really have that feel of what's going on, the evolution of cloud, and especially in our industry, data, and even more data. And really building those relationships with key Microsoft people and being part of the program like the ISV Connect program. The support of our PDMs that support us locally has been tremendous to help us to achieve everything from co-selling together to joint marketing campaigns and even. And we've been a partner of Microsoft and within the Dynamics ecosystem for probably 20 years now. But yeah, a lot has evolved on the platform and the way that the Power Platform has been evolving over the last 3-4 years. And just having that connection with the technical teams, the teams in Redmond to make sure that the go-to-market is aligned, that from an industry perspective, utilities is touching the right capabilities within the platform. And I think it goes both ways. Maybe allow me to say, Brian, you've learned a few things from us as well on how to evolve the platform.
That's
so
right.
It's really that constant communication and seeing what we can do together to improve the platform, to improve our offerings, and to make sure that our clients are happy using what we have to offer from a joint perspective.
And if I can comment on that, definitely also what we sometimes forget is in partner to partner, it's always about the customer angle. And what we used to have is that there were a lot of great applications, but to bring them all together was very challenging, because you used to have a lot of data silos and partners working together. What was difficult, and what we see with the Power Platform in the cloud, so the based on one version, one release cloud application is making that a lot easier. So if we work with partners like Solgari, Formpipe, etc., if we show their software, it's based on the same platform strategy. So if the customer wants access to that, it has become much easier than in the past. And that's a big thing, because that encourages us to work with other ISVs. And the second comment I'd make there is that obviously I don't believe as a company, Ferranti is 300 something employees, we cannot be best in class in everything. So you need to focus, but customers are their demands are much bigger than they used to be in the past, and they expect you to give an answer. And that's where other ISVs together with Microsoft Tech can complement that. That we talked a bit about the business challenges. That's not about one solution or one application. It's about a lot of things working together to help what I would call a modern utility.
Yep.
No, well said, both of you, because I think that is one of the big benefits that we've heard over and over again, is that collaboration. To your point, Michiel, nothing's perfect, but being able to collaboratively learn from each other to drive the innovation, but also to partner, to your point, Johan, across our broad thousands and thousands of Microsoft partners, not just ISVs, but also SIs, who can work together and really try to drive the best outcomes with our customers. And I'd be remiss for me to also not congratulate you on another Inner Circle recognition.
Thank you.
For those of you who aren't aware, Microsoft, of course, has it helps to identify particularly our BizApps ISVs, ones that have really stood out with growth and success. And Ferranti is one of those ISVs that got that recognition. So thank you for that strong partnership. So I think with the 6 minutes we have left, as we wrap up, the two last questions, one of them being a great way to kind of talk about the outcomes that both of you talked about, is share with the people listening, what are some of the examples that you've come across in Europe and or anywhere else where the outcomes that both you, Johan, and Michiel were talking about? What are some of the examples of really customer stories that people listening, and maybe we have an energy or utility company listening to this going, oh, this could be me. What are some of the examples that you've that you both of you have experienced in both of your roles that really kind of shine in regards to the outcomes that we're going to help to deliver with these utility companies?
Oh, that's cool. We'll each pick one. Michiel, you go first, and then I'll pick a second one to just talk for it for a minute.
Well, I think one of the biggest things we've seen is really get the customer on the journey as well. So we've been talking about how do, as a partner with Microsoft, on being in that journey, and I think one of the comments is asking about that as well. It's really getting to handhold the customer and go through that change. The digitalization, the digital era, and the cloud architecture is a different ballgame than what we used to have in the past. And it's been a learning curve for us as a company as well over the last 5 years to really get there. And what we're noticing in deliveries is that we need to take that customer and handhold him as well. And I think there also the some of the steps that Microsoft has taken with the Catalyst and helping the customer understand some of the values, that really helps to get the customer on that journey to become a digital utility, to become cloud first, to understand what it means to have frequent releases and that they don't freak out when they hear it. Those are really important things. So it's really it's for me, it's even more important from an organizational structural mindset perspective than the actual technology behind it.
And I think what for us is a great example is a big water utility in the Netherlands. In the past, Ferranti would be seen as perhaps a billing provider, somebody that calculates the bills and shares that to the customer. But that's very narrow. And what we see now, that because it's a platform strategy, that customers look at it in a much broader sense. So if I talk about this one customer for which we've worked for over 10 years, we now see that they also invest more in the ERP side, in finance and operations. They're looking at the customer omni-channel side. So they're basically expanding the workloads and the use cases of how they want to work with us as a software solution provider. And that's of course interesting for us because we have long-term relationships with clients, and we can now address more of their pain points and challenges, not with different technology, but with the same platform, and sometimes bringing in another ISV. And there's one of the comments, definitely, it also introduces a bit more challenges because your area of expertise needs to be broader. But again, that's where the P2P comes into play. So I think a great customer story that we have is that customers are doing more with us because they see the value of the platform they've already invested in, and that they start adopting more workloads. And that goes way beyond what we used to do in the past. So definitely a good evolution for us and for the customer, I would say.
No, it's great, Johan. And you're probably referring to this question that popped up in exactly to your point, is that we have to adapt with not only what we have, but then pulling in a partner-to-partner network with other scenarios.
Absolutely, because cloud is not about a dedicated hosting in the cloud or something. It's not about hardware. And what we've seen also in our organization, the change that we've gone through to just talk about releases. Our customers are on the same version of the platform. We ship releases every 3 weeks. We used to do that every 9 months.
That's right.
That's a big change, and that's not about hardware. It's also about how the customer thinks. Customers used to be sometimes disappointed with us because they saw all new things that we were offering, and they asked us, "But how do I get there?" Because they were on this legacy infrastructure, and they needed to upgrade. And that has all changed because we talk about one version, one support. We talk about the fact that cost of upgrade has changed because you're always continuously, it's a cloud application, And yeah, it does not only require technology change, but also how you work with the customer,
right.
how they benefit from. And Microsoft does a lot of new features and functionalities in the Dynamics 365 platform periodically. So you're talking more to your customer, how they benefit from that, instead of talking about complex IT upgrades, etc. So that's that. Yeah, I think we're just at the beginning of where the cloud will go, and very exciting for sure.
Yeah, so well said, Johan, because that's one of the things that, of course, when you have legacy utility companies that have traditionally operated that way, you're right. Like usually, hey, we need to upgrade, and it's months and months and months of not only upgrading, but then business process change within that like heavy time frame. Versus when you're in the cloud, that innovation comes rapidly. That then working with partners like yourself to help with that innovation, but that is so relevant because especially when certain things outside of anyone's control happens, can you leverage the technology fairly quickly to adopt certain capabilities to then create outcomes?
And it definitely, yeah, it does introduce new challenges, because it's all not all roses and sunshine. But yeah, I think in the end, what we're seeing is that it's adding more value to the customer, and that's important. It's not cloud software because it's now a hype and it's cloud. It's to bring more benefits to the customer. And in our case, we quite often also talk about how does the end consumer interact more actively with what basically is a complex software application at our end.
That's right. That's great. So as we wrap up, what are some of what would you recommend as a call to action? So if we have a energy utility company listening to this and they'd like to learn more, besides reaching out to either of you on LinkedIn, what other kind of things would you recommend kind of as next steps for people to learn more or take action on?
Yeah, to comment on Michiel's introduction, I would say start cycling. That's always a good thing to do, irrespectively of what software you select. I would say if you're not yet in the cloud and go on this journey, think about how this will impact your organization, how your team works, and what you want to achieve. As a call to action, obviously reach out via LinkedIn. On our website, micoms.com, we have quite a bit of collateral. I think that's in the link below. But I think any utility needs to think about the balance between customer experience and operational efficiency, basically balancing what does it cost to maximize what I do with my customer. And I think we add value there. So more than happy to have a discussion on that with anyone that's interested.
That's great. Michiel?
Well, I would say as my role selfishly as a partner channel manager, I would say not for the utilities, but for partners that have listened, ISVs that think that they have something that could benefit utilities, feel free to reach out. We really have an ecosystem of ISVs that we work together, that we offer the software together. Johan mentioned them, like companies like Solgari and Formpipe. But also SIs, I mean, there's a lot that has changed and transformation in the platform economy, where Micoms tries to add quite a lot of capabilities on top of what Dynamics offers for our utilities. So feel free to reach out to us directly. Happy to explore how we can basically support local utilities in certain regions where we might not have presence, where an SI, like anybody listening, can be our point of contact. So happy to speak to any of the SIs or ISVs that are part of the ISV Connect program as well, to see how we can basically enrich even more the capabilities and have stronger solutions to our customers.
What a great wrap up for both sides, because you're right. I mean, it is not just a potential customer buyer situation, but also the partner side. So thank you so much, Johan, Michiel, for spending time with me. Again, thank you for all of you either watching live or watching the replay. Again, we do this every Monday, absent of vacations or holidays, 8 o'clock. Next week, we have pros, which does lead to cash scenarios. So for those of you interested in that configure price quote type of scenario, feel free to tune in next week at 8. So Johan, Michiel, thank you so much again. Michiel, thank you also for taking time out of your holiday to spend time with us.
No
I can't
worries.
imagine that you'd actually could bike home if you wanted to.
He needs more training for that. He needs more training for that.
It would take too long. That's it.
So anyway, thank you again, everybody. Be well, be safe, and thanks again, Ferranti, for joining us.
Thank you,
Take care.
Brian.
Thanks,
Thank you all
everyone.
for joining.
Thanks, Brian. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.